Malice, where do you stand on Hasan Piker as an anarchist? You've got to be. I mean, I don't know. Are you an accelerationist anarchist? Where are you here?
Well, I'd like to. There's some wordplay here. I'd like to be standing on him literally while he's in the ground. Does that answer the question? I think anyone who I really loathe this kind of champagne socialism kind of thing. This kind of limousine leftism. It really rubs me the wrong way. I think he is someone who just says really nasty things and doesn't really have much accountability for it. And what accountability could you really have? It's like you have a microphone, you have the First Amendment. But I do think he's a bad person and a bad actor. And I mean, I don't really have anything particularly insightful to say about him.
Well, he's on a tour of China and was live streaming in Tiananmen Square. This is pretty clearly he live streams for hours and hours and hours. If you've missed the kind of boat on Hasan Piker, he's a leftist streamer. Go watch his interview on the New York Times with Ross Douthat to get a flavor of what Hasan Pikerism is. I think he's like my age, 30-something, early 30s. He's Cenk Uyghur's nephew, came up through the Young Turks world, is such a successful Twitch streamer, came up through talking about politics while playing video games, that he lives in a mansion and has a lot of, when I was at the DNC last year, I'm telling you, a lot of young Dem staffers flocking over to Hasan Piker. He was at the Zoran party last week, also getting swamped by young leftists. So now he is in China. Let's go ahead and roll S3 to get a flavor of that.
What makes it interesting for me at least is like seeing so many people from all over the country literally travel here just to see this.
That part is insane. Look how many.
Like I just don't like I don't have any sort of patriotism in my heart for America, but just in general. I'm not like a very, I care about people.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like it's hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
But I do understand it in some ways, and I kind of wanted to talk to some of the people here because like all of the old people that you see around, right? You have to remember, every single person that you see around us, that's like, especially if they've been alive since like the 70s or the 60s, they have seen a radical transformation in their lifetimes, unlike any other country, right? So for them, I think there's a lot of pride in that.
Well, Malice, I would say the generation before that generation saw a pretty radical transformation in Chinese history.
Yeah, he's standing on June 4th, 1989, a lot of young people who would have in other contexts been Hasan Piker fans mowed down by tanks and slaughtered. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. And that footage was later shown in places like East Germany and other places in the Eastern Bloc I wrote about in my book, The White Pill. If you want to talk about transformation, what about East Germany? What about Romania? What about all these other countries which had dictatorships and transitioned peacefully into successful liberal democracies? So to be walking around there and, where so many young people who wanted freedom were slaughtered, and just being like, oh, I don't have any patriotism in my heart. It's just like, you know what? So stay there. I don't want to dunk on him because I don't think this is like some, dumb college lefty on Twitter. Like that, what's her name? Juliana, whatever her name is, from Texas.
Oh, don't you dare.
Like 400 pounds.
Olivia Juliana,
yeah,
the men's outreach coordinator.
Yeah, she's some dumb chick who has opinions on Twitter. Who cares, right? Like, I don't, like, it's funny to dunk on her because she's kind of silly and a cartoon figure. This is just real malevolence. Like, this is just walking on bodies. And at a certain point, it stops being funny.
Cute.
And just, it starts being cute. And it's just like, is there any throat you won't slit? It's just horrific to me.
Let's actually, I want to pull up this video because I think given what you just said, it's relevant. This is another Piker stream from China. He got like censored basically in Tiananmen Square. You could see on the stream people pulling over asking to see his phone, authorities pulling him over as he was walking asking to see his phone, and then the stream just went to black. Here's more though from Hasan.
My mind, in my conscience,
I have already become Chinese. Okay? We were already white Chinese in this chat. I've already become full Chinese. Okay? Let me just start by saying that. It's fucking sick. Okay?
I feel like he's a little buzzed.
Like, you have abundant style consumption paired up
Maybe a lot
with
buzzed.
a centrally controlled economy, an economic system that has yielded tremendous development. You have 1950s Soviet era building blocks next to the Gucci store. If there was ever a country that represented the synthesis, the things that I enjoy so much personally, if ever such a country existed, I do not know. You have to try the premium grilled chicken sandwich at McDonald's China, or I'm gonna report you to the CCP officials. You have met me at a very Chinese time in my life, chat.
Okay. Reaction, Malice. I can
Where
see
is he, like Rachel
steaming.
Dolezal? What the hell is it? It's just yellow? Like, what is he talking about? I become Chinese. They don't want you. And
They very specifically do not want Muslims, by the way. That is the entire situation in Xinjiang. And he's sitting down with a journalist who has been whitewashing the Xinjiang allegations.
it's also, they have camps. If you're in prison there, for people are in prison for political reasons, they experiment on you. Like the human rights abuses in China are insane. And even without those like cases where they're extreme, no one else has any kind of freedom. It's a free speech. It's just it's just very, very disquieting to me to see something like this. I don't know how else to put it. I don't think I have any particular insight, but I mean, if I would imagine, my high school was half Asian. I went to Stuyvesant, New York. I imagine if you come here, first generation, second generation, and you see this guy in China, you know, dancing around and singing its praises, it's like, I can only imagine what would be going through your head.
Well, in the context of the Mamdani election last week, where we were discussing this early in the show, you know, that Peter Thiel email is making its rounds again about how, what does he say, like 80% of opposition to capitalism can be chalked up to, or he says something like 80% of culture war battles can be chalked up to economics, like cost of living problems that younger people are experiencing. This is when he was more talking about millennials, like it was roughly 10 years ago. But it's getting re-upped again because that feels as current now as it did then. And Malice, I think you might have some insight into why the Hasan Pikers of the world feel appealing to, or Zoran Mamdani's, to people right now living in 2025, especially younger people.
If I'm young and even remotely center left, right, how am I going to look at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as people who care about me and are fighting for me? They're both, Biden especially, I mean, talk about a total corporate party hack. He's been around since the 70s. He's a puppet of, you know, the Democratic Party. I'm not going to be inspired by this guy. I am going to be inspired by Bernie. I am going to be inspired by people who see me, who speak to me, who make me feel seen and respected and recognized. The other thing is, if the establishment of the Democratic Party hasn't served me as a young person, I'm going to go with the guy who's on the left who upsets them. Because like he's making them angry. That means he's putting forth uncomfortable truths. He's going to actually go there and make a big difference. I am not too concerned at all about Zoran Mamdani. I don't think he'll be very different from de Blasio, who was also like a commie. And I'm very, very glad that the New Jersey and Virginia elections went so heavily for the Democrats, because if those were close and he won in New York, the Democratic Party in the midterms would tilt very heavily left. Because when your house has been destroyed, right, how am I going to rebuild? Emily's going to say, let's rebuild in the middle. I'll say, let's rebuild in the left. All right, let's look at the tea leaves. And if the left had been the victor, all right, we got to go the left. But the fact that you had these presented as moderates in New Jersey and Virginia who had huge blowouts against perfectly fine candidates, that is telling me and the Democratic Party leaders which direction to go.
Okay, so if you're talking to maybe a Piker viewer and explaining to them why the idea of a Gucci store next to the Soviet building blocks that Hasan just referenced, having seen in China, which I'm assuming he's referencing like industrial capacity, big buildings, new buildings, that type
I've
of
seen
thing.
that Gucci store. I was in that there on my way to Pyongyang, North Korea. So he's not wrong. There's like like I was there. There's an Apple store, and when I was at the Apple store in Beijing, I tried to look up Tiananmen Square, and it's just a blank. It like doesn't come up on Google.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, so what's your response then to somebody who says the idea of Gucci next to, this marvelous industrial capacity, it can be done. We can have Stalin and Gucci. We can have Stalin in Gucci. Is it ever possible?
My response would be, "How did you get my contact info?" Like
First of all,
I'm not really kidding. I think at a certain point where someone has a framework so different from your own, the cost benefit analysis of trying to bring them to anything remotely reasonable is not there. And I think I don't hew to this idea that this democratic ideal that everyone should get together and have a big conversation. There's certain people who should be just marginalized and not engaged with. And if you're singing the praises of concentration camps and totalitarianism, I'm not interested in bringing you toward like a Hillary Clinton liberalism. I'm not.
It's interesting in this media environment though, because I think, I'm 32 and after the wall fell, that's my entire life.
Right.
And I think for a generation of people my age, and especially the generation of people younger than me who were born after 9/11 and are now in college and out of college and the workforce, voting and such, a lot of the propaganda is it's much easier to believe when you weren't around as the wall was still up, or you weren't around to see the Cold War. I mean, I think it's easy to brush that aside as like, oh, it's the Uyghurs, that's CIA talking points, which, by the way, some of it might be CIA, doesn't mean all of it is CIA. There are mountains of evidence of what's happened in Xinjiang. So it just feels like in this media environment, it's an uphill battle to even have that conversation because nobody trusts anything.
And here's the other thing. Just because something's a CIA talking point doesn't mean it's false. The CIA is going to exploit realities to further its agenda. So it's just very bizarre to claim that whatever the CIA says is a lie. Whatever the CIA says is self-serving, but that doesn't mean inherently they're just making things out of whole cloth.
Not that that would be beyond them. They have done
Well,
that.
of course
but yes.
not.
Right. Yeah, but don't you think right now it's just like trying to convince people of what's propaganda and what's not, especially if, like historically, it just feels almost impossible. It's like speaking a different language.
Yes, I think what I'm terrified about is AI is going to escalate this. Because the AI my algorithm is going to feed me things that validate my perspective and keep away things that contradict my perspective. And it's going to see very easily, evolutionarily, what I click on, what I don't. And everyone is going to have a self-reinforcing reality. And I don't know where you go from there. And I think it's happening already.
That is completely terrifying. So have you ever noticed those creepy ads, I know you have, that pop up on your phone and seem to know exactly where you've been, what you've bought, even what you've been talking about? This happened to me one time in the most specific way ever. Absolutely wild and creepy. You've probably asked yourself, is my phone monitoring me? Yes, I've asked myself that question. I know you have too. The truth is your smartphone is constantly collecting and leaking data without your knowledge or consent. Every day it builds a detailed profile of your life, your location, your habits, your interests, even the people with whom you are communicating. That information is funneled into an invisible marketplace where it's tracked, analyzed, and sold to the highest bidder, which, by the way, can include the government, of course. It's not just annoying, it's invasive, it's so creepy, and it's happening all of the time. But the Up phone by Unplug is different. It's totally different. It's similar to other phones that you've used in a way that it's just super accessible, easy to blend in. I have it right here in my hand. It's easy to switch from one phone to the Up phone. So similar in that sense, but totally different when it comes to privacy and tracking. It is designed actually to protect your privacy from the ground up. Super cool. No hidden trackers, no data mining, just a secure, streamlined smartphone experience that puts you back in control. Whether you're texting, browsing, or using apps, the Up phone ensures your personal information stays personal. It's the phone for people who are done being watched. The tools on this thing are absolutely incredible. It's giving me, like, I'm pulling it up right now, giving me a data warning. gives you a firewall, constant information, all of that good stuff. So, but it functions really easily and really smoothly. So again, if you're ready to take back your digital privacy, visit unplugged.com/Emily to get $25 off a phone case with a purchase of a phone. That's unplugged.com/Emily, because your life should be yours, not theirs.